The reigning champion of appearances on Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball is back with us today. The great Adam King, who I'm going to at some point convince to sign his tweets with a little crown at the end, just to go that LeBron route. He'll be here with 4 buys and sells, but also a theoretical discussion. And you guys know I love that stuff. We're going to invariably spend too much time on that during today's podcast. Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Dan Vespers at Dan Vespers on social. Old Man Squad over on the new Blue Sky, Old Man Squad Fantasy on Instagram. And before we get Adam involved, knock this sucker out early. Bet Online continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, Bet Online provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football to the NBA and college basketball, hockey, and UFC, head to Bet Online today. Don't forget to use the promo code BELIEVE, B-L-E-A-V, for your welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, the game starts here. Here he is. He's not signing his tweets with a crown yet, but we'll get there. Can we? You are like, I get it. I know LeBron is like King of basketball and all that stuff. King James, I get it. I know all the references. Your name is King. The crown is yours if you want it.
Yeah, it is. I don't want it, but yeah, it was a name that was bestowed upon me. I don't think I've earned it. So
yeah, no, come on, don't sell yourself short. I don't know.
Maybe.
No, you know what? I'm changing the course of today's show. First of all, find Adam on social media at AdamKing91. That's on both Twitter and on Blue Sky. AdamKing91. It's very easy to spell. It's the way that you think it would be. I need to get your thoughts on one thing before we start talking about your buys and sells. And I'm buying myself a minute here, talking slowly because I want to put it up on the screen. And it's a tweet I just got. So it's fresh and it's fresh on everybody's mind. Hypercritical to everything going on in the world right now. Now Adam can see it, and he's like, what the hell is this man doing to me? This tweet, I can't stop laughing about it, and I need your opinion. The tweet reads, I'll read it for the folks listening after the fact. This is from a follower named Doug. Hey, Dan, love your work. So far, so good. I like this tweet so far, Doug. Just wanted to take this opportunity to let you know I saw you on YouTube the other day, and you're much more handsome. Shouldn't the tweet end there? It doesn't. Much more handsome than your voice would lead one to believe. This is the greatest tweet I've ever received in my life. Adam, I need your thoughts. Do I have the voice of a foul beast? I must know.
I don't think so.
Thanks, Adam. I appreciate you.
No.
Funny.
I actually think.
Yeah,
I mean, it's one of those things, I suppose, and I do this a lot in my work where if you hear someone or you're talking to someone about someone else, I always create an image in my head of what that person looks like. I think your voice and your head match. So, so yes, no, I'm and maybe, I don't know. I mean, obviously we've been doing this for a long time, so
yeah, we know what we look like.
But yeah, to me they're in alignment. Your head and your voice are in alignment.
I don't even know if I should say thank you for that. That means that I think that I sound like a little bit nerdy, but I have an okay voice. And so I actually agree with you. I think that my face is like okay, but fairly nerdy. But this tweet is killing me. And I had to throw it on the very next show that I recorded because it's too damn funny. That's not the point of today's program. We're talking buys and sells, and we'll get off of this before people are like, where's the fantasy? Where's the cream filling? Adam, you are in control, as all guests are on this show. Where do you want to go first?
So I've gone with 3 buy lows, 1 sell high.
Okay.
And I've tried to use people or players where I think you could actually pull this off, because I could say Obi Toppin as a sell high, but no one's buying Obi Toppin. So I've tried to use players that I think if you wanted to consider buying, selling, you could actually do it. So I'm going to start. I'm going to start with Devin Vassell.
Okay.
as a buy low.
Yeah,
obviously.
he's god awful lately.
Not
But
a sell.
I agree with you on this one. Go ahead.
So yeah, I think that people, if you're trying to buy Devin Vassell, injuries have obviously been a factor this season. He's had a couple of injuries, games missed. The ramp up has been painfully slow by San Antonio. They refuse to start him for whatever reason. They just won't move him into that starting lineup. He's coming off arguably the worst game of his career, where he had 4 points in 25 minutes with absolutely nothing else. We've had with the weird schedule, and we know recency bias, all that sort of thing. People will think in their head, it's been so long since he had a good game. He's been bad for a week. What's going on here? That's a schedule thing. Most teams have only played 1 or 2 games in the last week. So I just think there's a lot here working towards him being a buy low. We think, I mean, as analysts, we don't know, but we think he will move into the starting lineup at some point. And I still think he's a very good player. And I think the Spurs, the fact that they're being so cautious with him tells me that they think he's a good player as well. They don't want to rush him. They can't afford to not have him on the floor. So, but managers will be getting frustrated. If you stashed him, had him in your IR spot, he came back, he got injured, he's played limited minutes, he's not playing back-to-backs, everything is just so slow. And that last 4-point game is really, to me, just a cherry on top. Mm-hmm. If you want to try and buy him, now is the time, because I do think at some point he's going to figure this out and they will move him into the starting lineup and he will play 30 minutes a night. And if you look at the game before, one game back, he did play 30 minutes and he had 23 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 4 threes, shot the ball well. And he has had, I think he's been pretty good other than that 4-point game, but people don't think that far back. So I just think he is one that you probably could pull off, because it seems to have been one thing after another with him rather than just one instance of a bad game.
Oh, 100% agree. On top of the fact that, myself included, many of us called him a buy low last week before this mega clunker of a game. And I think in that moment, there was kind of this like, all right, I'll go do it. And then someone might have done it, and now they're feeling particularly idiotic. This is like that confluence of all the things happening at the same time. Because, yeah, he was probably shooting a little bit over his head for a bit there. But, I mean, the numbers back up what you're talking about. Sure, the minutes haven't been there, but he had scored in double digits in something like 10 straight ball games. Then he had a 7. Then he back to a 23, and then the 4 with just nothing. 4 points and nothing across the board. This is that moment. And the only thing that comes up is like, what do we think it takes to get him right now? Because prior to this game, I thought you could have had him for like a 90 range guy with some name recognition. Feels like right now you could even go cheaper than that, and it might work.
Yeah, it might. I mean, for the season, he's still well outside the top 100. Just in 9-cat, he's barely inside the top 200 over the last 2 weeks. Now, you're not going to get him for a top 200 player, like someone who's basically waiver wire fodder. But yeah, I think, as you said, we were looking at a top 90 kind of guy. And so I still think if you throw out I think it probably has to be a starter level fantasy player. So top 100, top 110. I don't think you're going to get him for, I don't know, like a Brandon Boston or something like that. People just won't buy that. But I don't know. You could, Grady Dick. Could you throw Grady Dick out there? I mean, he's been playing well. He's taken advantage of injuries to other players. He's coming off a 20-something point game. I can't remember exactly what it was. So you could throw him out there.
How about Bilal Coulibaly? That's an interesting one because he's warming back up again.
Yeah, I'd definitely take Vassell over him. DeAndre Hunter, people love points. DeAndre Hunter's been scoring a lot of points. Maybe you could. I'd definitely move DeAndre Hunter for him. Klay Thompson, who's played well the last 2 weeks. I'd take Vassell over him. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a few names in that range that you probably could offer up, and that would be at least intriguing enough for Vassell managers.
Yeah, I agree, especially if you can find a name that has a little bit of that name recognition, like you talked about with a Klay or whoever in there, that people will recognize the name and not really realize what they might be able to get their hands on in Devin Vassell. Kingy, who's player number 2?
All right, let's go with Dereck Lively.
Oh, interesting.
On this one. So he was an interesting one. I had 3. I came up with 3 names pretty quickly, and then I was going through and trying to come up with a 4th. And I get a lot of questions regarding Daniel Gafford in Dallas. So a lot of Gafford questions. Is he a drop? What's going on here with him? And meanwhile, Dereck Lively sort of just cruising along, but not to the point where I think he's drawing attention to himself or anything like that. And his numbers have been okay, but not great. So for me, this would require the manager of Lively being a little bit, I guess maybe not on the ball as much as some others are. Because if you actually look at the trend with Lively, he's trending up in terms of his role, his minutes. He's playing 30 minutes a game now. And like I said, we get the Gafford questions because it is not a minute split anymore like it was earlier in the season. This is a 30-18 split, 32-16. So that is pointing to the fact that they do want to lean more into Dereck Lively. We saw how much he played in the playoffs last year. He's their preferred center. But the numbers aren't following. The production is not coming as the minutes go up. And if you look at his last few games, I have his log here. He's scored single digits in 4 straight games. The blocks have been fine, but not great. He's averaging 5. So 1.4, 1.3 blocks a game over the last. And again, because of this game weird schedule thing with days off, it feels like it's been a lot longer that he's been struggling. You can, if you go back, it's 2 weeks basically, but it's only 4 games. 2 weeks is normally 6 to 8 games. The rebound numbers are okay there. Like he's getting, I don't know, 20, what he's had 30, almost 40 rebounds in those last 4 games. So the rebounds are okay. But the scoring's not there. The blocks aren't there. The minutes are. So if his manager just pays attention to box scores and not necessarily minutes played, they might just be looking at this and going, well, what's he doing here? He's not giving me the numbers that I want. And maybe you could offer someone and I think get a centre back that is going to be locked into a 30-minute role rest of season. And I think what we've seen from him in the past 4 games is probably his floor. I think he's only going to get better as he spends more time on the court.
What do you think it would take to get Lively right now? Because you do have to love that minute trend line.
Yeah. So what? Let me have a look. What is he?
Probably cheaper than what we were just talking about with Vassell, wouldn't you think? Because he doesn't score that much.
I think so, and I don't think he has the name recognition quite of Vassell, quite the same as Vassell does at the moment. So Lively's, again, the last 2 weeks he's outside the top 150. And I mean, if you were to throw out, I don't know, I think you could go a little bit lower here. You could probably go into the 120s. So, well, here's one for you, an interesting one. DeAndre Ayton or Dereck Lively? Who would you rather?
Oof. Well, as a roto guy, I probably go Ayton because I'm not that worried about the fact that he's going to play like 8 games between now and the end of the season. Head-to-head, you probably go Lively for that trend line because Ayton's probably not playing in March.
Or February.
Or February.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think you could have him even cheaper than that. I think you could get him.
I think so.
I'm looking at some of the names that are in like the 115 range. Maybe not 115. Maybe that's not the best range to look like. Man,
I'm trying to look for centers. Like I think in a move like this, you'd be looking to move a center for a center. So I don't know, Yusuf Nurkic,
Draymond Green. I know he's a
Green
superstar, but otherwise he's been not particularly good.
No, I'd take Lively over
Zach Edey, Clint Capella. I don't know if these would get it done. Worth a try.
Capella might get it done, I think. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
All right. So swap some centers. Get yourself some Dereck Lively because the minutes are on the way up and the numbers will follow. That's how it works, especially for guys where the stuff you're looking for is typically tied almost exclusively to playing time. Rebounds, steals, and blocks is what you want out of him. And that's the stuff you just get more of if you're on the court for longer. And again, that minute per game trend line is pointed firmly in the positive direction. Adam, I know you got two more names, but there's a couple of things I wanted to address mid-show. Number one is promo time. First of all, everybody, we're talking to Adam King. Kingy, Adam King 91 on social media. What are you working on these days?
Lots of shows. I don't know how you've done it for so long, talking to yourself on a show for years. I'm already sick of myself.
I'm a psychopath. That's how.
Yeah. Yes. So plenty of shows. Trying to do 2 a day at the moment, which will be easier for the next few weeks with school holidays and summer holidays and things like that over here. So I will have a little bit more flexibility, a bit more time. So we'll continue doing a pre-game and a post-game show. But as I said, I'm sick of myself. So I've been reaching out to people. So I've got, I think I'm doing a show with Dan Titus tomorrow. Trying to get Noah on the show a little bit more. Trying to do weekly shows with you when we can.
Yeah, it's my fault. I mean, you're being kind, but like I thought I could do yesterday, and then I realized no, there was just no prayer for that. I had a dermatological full skin check yesterday in the morning. This like you don't just get the nickname Old Man Vesperus. You wear that nickname. Yeah, it's fine. I don't spend that much time out in the sun, so you wouldn't think of me as like the skin check guy, but yeah, here we are. So that's why we're doing the show today instead of yesterday, because Dan stuff. But yeah, everybody check out everything that Adam's working on. Follow on social media. That's the best way to get the sort of hub of everything. Your stuff is through the FBI feed. That's where everything can be found right now. Your shows are also part of the Old Man Squad Network. Adam King 91 social media. You also have, this is not a buy low or a sell high. You had a theoretical thing you wanted to talk about. You didn't tell me what it was, which is great. I like to be surprised on shows. And everybody knows I love to take these little journeys down side roads off to whatever weirdo island. What is this mysterious theory you wanted to bring up?
So it's something that I brought up on my show. I feel like it was probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. And then I've just sort of, I've noodled with it in my mind, going to sleep at night as we do.
Yeah, we're normal.
And so I had a very good example to sort of almost back up this theory, but then he went and got injured. So that sort of hurt me a bit, but I will still use him as the example, and it's Franz Wagner. So thinking about all of the I guess we could use Vucevic a little bit in this theoretical or hypotheses. These guys were sell highs. So I think analyst people were really talking about Franz when he was playing well. Paolo Banchero was out. Franz was putting up first round value, something like that. So we were really hammering the fact that sell high, sell high, sell high, sell high. You have to do it before Paolo comes back. And then I sort of got to thinking, is there, and this would not happen often, but are there situations like this with Franz and with, I think you could use Vooch a little bit in this discussion as well, where we hammer home this idea of selling high on someone to the point where they actually become a buy low. where the narrative can flip because the manager of insert player here, Franz Wagner, is so conscious and aware of, I need to be selling this guy. Everyone's telling me to sell him. I need to sell him. I need to sell him. That they end up selling him for, I don't know, a top 50 player. They go, okay, well, I drafted him at pick 55. Maybe I can get a top 40 player, for example. So maybe I can get a top 40 player. They move off him quickly. They make a hasty decision. And Franz ends up being a top 25 player for the rest of the season. And Vooch is a little bit like that. Very, very much sell high, sell high, sell high. What if he does this for the rest of the season? What if he is a top 30 player but you go and move him for a top 50 player? And as I said, it's not going to happen often, but it was just something that I was thinking about. And I wonder if that is actually a situation that could happen in with certain players where the narrative is thrust on the listeners so much that it flips and they end up losing value on a player that you really shouldn't be losing value on.
That is a really interesting thought. And it does feel like there's kind of this almost like a needle moving from that. The more you talk about it, the needle shifts from sell high to like there's probably a let it ride point somewhere right in the middle before it gets into the actual buy side. And it's really interesting that you're bringing this up on today's episode, because earlier this morning, Raphael Johnson brought up a couple of names that he thought might actually kind of be those guys where it's like, well, like, is it even worth it to sell this guy, or should we just let it ride kind of deal?
Yeah.
And you're bringing up the notion of how does that public perception get created? I don't know that there's a way to really know the answer to this. Like each individual situation is going to be its own sort of one data point in however many we end up talking about. But yes, I mean, I'm inclined to agree with you. I think that there is a point at which we hammer something so hard that it sort of it flips the needle to the other side. And that's why these shows are complicated, because everything comes down to the return. What's the return on this trade you're trying to make? You're trying to buy a guy. What does it cost you? You're trying to sell a guy. What can you get back? So I do think that the way that we can, as analysts, that we can kind of prevent that from happening is to make sure listeners know what is our cutoff. What would we sell Vooch for right now? Is it 35? Is it 40? Is it 45? Is it higher? Is it lower? That kind of thing. And that way they know, okay, like Dan and Adam, they told me to go try to get a top 35 guy for Vooch back. I can't get that in my league. I'm just going to let it ride kind of thing. And to me, that's the only way that we can maybe dodge creating that situation for our own followers. But like at large, there might be an article floating around out there that's just like, here's your sell high guy, but it doesn't say what the return should be. There's nothing you and I ourselves can do about that. So I think as analysts, we all just continue to do our best to make sure that listeners and followers know what we want on the other side of these deals. And then we can kind of protect us from ourselves kind of thing. But I think that's a really good point. It does happen. Not that I disagree. I do think Vooch is a sell high, but the return has to be the right amount. And that's the case with all of them. Yeah, really good point. I like that. That's like, we could probably do 25 minutes on that, but we're not, damn it. Because people have an entire day they need to also still enjoy. Kingy, who's number 3?
So I'll go with my sell high. Now that we've spoken about it, so I will go with a sell high. So this guy is having a good year. I will say that. So this is not he's been this good for 2 weeks, but before that he was bad. He has been good all year. It's RJ Barrett. So he has had, I think, quite comfortably the best season of his career, I would say. Still a couple of issues with his percentages, or free throw percentages specifically, but field goals have been down a little bit. But on the whole, I think it's been a very good season, but he has taken advantage of the fact that the Raptors have been without their starting point guard for basically the whole year. And with Emmanuel quickly out, the common sense pick to step into that point guard role is Scotty Barnes, who has also missed a significant portion of the year. So with him also out, RJ Barrett's assist numbers have been insane. He's had double-doubles. I don't know if he had a triple-double. Maybe he did. But anyway, he's had very, very good assist numbers. He's averaging
he did
6 point. He did. Okay. Yeah.
I think he's had 2, actually.
Yeah, it could be 2. There's one. Yeah, he has had 2. Yeah. But he's had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 double-digit assist games, which we have never really associated assists with RJ Barrett. He's averaging 6.1 per game. And yeah, I mean, last year he was at 3.3, 2.8, 3.0. So he's basically doubled his assist rate this year. And the scoring is up. So look, he has been very good. Scotty Barnes is questionable for tomorrow. I believe he's been upgraded. Emmanuel quickly is hopefully 1 to 2 weeks away. We don't really know. But when both of those guys come back, RJ Barrett is almost certainly going to take a hit, especially in that assist column, but everything probably takes a bit of a hit. So this is really just a situation, I think, where everything has led to this moment, and he's coming off, if we look at recency bias, he's coming off a 32-point game where he had 9 assists, 2 blocks and a steal, and hit his free throws. He'd had a 30-point game only a week before that. So this is really just a situation where guys are about to come back. So maybe you're going to take a hit for a week or 2, but I think in a month, this will, well, assuming that Emmanuel quickly doesn't come back and get injured again, or Scotty Barnes doesn't come back, but we can't project that. So I just think this is the time. If you're looking to sell RJ Barrett, now would be a time, because he's basically been running the show.
Would you try to find a team in your league that might be punting free throws and use them as a potential target? Or how would you try to piece this one together?
I think you could. So his free throws for the year, he's sort of basically in line with what he's done his career. He's at 72.5, 73% from the free throw line. And he does get there fairly consistently. So he's at 6 free throw attempts per game, which is that's high volume. I would consider that high volume. So if free throw percentage is the one category, because I don't count turnovers, and I mean, he doesn't get defensive stats, but that's, I don't know, I view the percentages and a sort of that category where someone can actually drag you down the more they do, which is one of the questions we have about percentages being a category. But I think a team that's punting free throws would be your first port of call anyway. That's where I would start.
And this one feels a little bit different than the theory stuff we were just discussing, because it does kind of feel like there's a bit of a timestamp on it. And I don't know, like, is there really any prayer that he continues doing what he's been doing when 1 or 2 other usage guys come back? It feels like the answer to that question is a pretty firm no.
I have liked how he's looked since arriving in Toronto. So I do think that he will continue to be a 20-point scorer. But for me, it's like I said, those assist numbers are going to come down.
Yeah.
And the points probably come down a little bit. So no, I don't think what he's been doing is sustainable. But as I said, assuming that the Raptors are healthy, there's no guarantee that will happen. And they're also toward the bottom of the standing. So is there a point where they're going to shut someone down or say, quickly, you've had 3 injuries now, just take the rest of the season off and get healthy? So there is an element of risk, as there is with any sell high. because you can't project the future. But the process by which we come upon this decision, I think, would point to him being a sell high.
Last name for Kingy. Who is the fourth? I know it's a buy low, but that's all I know right now.
The fourth name is a buy low, and we have to talk about Dyson Daniels. So of course I'm gonna have Dyson Daniels. Can I just mention very quickly though? You've got RJ Barrett on the screen there. Feels like he's been in the NBA for a while, which he has. He's been 2019. He was his draft. The fact he was born in the year 2000 just makes me feel so old.
Oh, man. You're always willing to bring that. I mean, I don't say you're always willing. It's always fine to bring up how old we feel on an Old Man Squad Sports Network podcast. That is condoned. It is expected. I already talked about me getting a skin check earlier on the program.
Yeah.
And there are younger guys. We're about to go to a year. I'll share the next one. That's 3 years later. Dyson Daniels is younger.
Yep. Yeah, I'd already, so 2003, I'd already moved into semi-retirement.
This dude just started drinking legally.
Yep. It's in America.
Yeah, sorry. During his NBA time.
Yeah, that's right. All right, so Dyson Daniels, the very young Dyson Daniels.
Yeah, sprightly young lad.
Been very good this season, obviously, and we don't need to talk about that. But he is one of these, and this is another. It's not a theory, but a mindset I think that I've talked about with a few players this season, and Dyson fits this perfectly, where we had expectations during the draft. So in September, October, when we were drafting, we had expectations for where we think Dyson was going to go in drafts, where we think he could finish as a fantasy player. Bilal Coulibaly was another good example of this. Out of the gates, they basically blew that number out of the park. So Bilal Coulibaly somehow was just averaging like 20 points a game for the first week or two. Dyson Daniels had, what did he have? Like 4 games with 6 steals. At least
that
6
was nuts.
He had, the scoring was up. He had back-to-back 20-point games, before which he had a 16-point game, an 18-point game. So I think very quickly the narrative shifted on Dyson Daniels, and the fantasy bar went up. So people were then expecting, hey, he's going to be this guy that averages 20 points and gets me 4 or 5 steals a game. And because he doesn't have that backing of years of a sample size of, we could say, well, no, this is clearly an outlier. He's played limited minutes in New Orleans, and that's it. So people were sort of like, well, maybe this is who he is. I have nothing to compare this to. And so, whereas, if someone like I don't know, who's a good example? Lou Dort, we see him put together 2 weeks of strong production. We're not buying that. We know who Lou Dort is. We know what his fantasy game. We've got years of what Lou Dort does. For Dyson Daniels, those expectations went way up. And so it then doesn't take much for him to disappoint, despite the fact that he has been playing well over the last 2-3 weeks. The steal numbers are not at 5 per game or 4 per game. Like the last game is a perfect example. He had 11 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 steal, 1 block. Rewind 2 months. If I'm drafting a guy that's getting me 11, 8, 5 with a steal and a block, I'm thrilled. And that's what we expected from him. But because of that narrative shifting, people now see that game as he's a drop. Why am I holding Dyson Daniels? And I get questions. Is Dyson Daniels a drop?
Seriously?
Yeah.
What are these leagues?
Who knows? I wish I was in some of those leagues.
I will blow every single dollar of my fab budget. I know he hasn't been great the last week, but a lot of the bad ranking is because he's like 2 out of 8 at the free throw line during that span. It's like the ultimate in, or 3 out of 8 at the free throw line. Either way, it's like the ultimate in small sample size theater. If you completely ignore the fact that he's had 2 wretched free throw games in his last 3 outings, I think he's still like around top 100 on this production. How on earth anybody could think about a drop there? So you're arguing that because he's had a quieter spell, that there's a lot of like almost confirmation bias from the folks that were expecting him to slow down. And now they're coming out of the woodwork to say, see, it was all a mirage. And you're saying, okay, you give him to me. I'll take him. So that then creates a buy bubble for you. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, I think so. And it is those people that were not as high on him, and they'll say, see, he's not that good. And again,
I don't know who these people are, though. Who are these people? Every one of you guys that came on this show was like Dyson. And I was like, yeah, Dyson. But they're out there somewhere.
Yeah, they are. And I know, like, for example, I know Josh had a question about should I don't know if it was for trade. It was probably trade. Should I trade Dyson Daniels for Jaden Ivey? And I wouldn't have them in the same range. But people, again, that points bias, they do look at scoring. A lot of people just look at that scoring column. And so when the numbers drop, they don't necessarily pay attention to what's happening in the other columns. And Dyson should not have been drafted for points. You should not have been looking at Dyson Daniels and going, I'm going to get this guy. He's going to get me 20 points a game. You draft him for steals, blocks, some assists, a good rebounder, and nothing has changed in those categories. So, yeah, I think he is a buy low, and I think he will continue to sort of be like this for the rest of the season. He will go from a sell high to a buy low within 2 to 3 games.
What do you think it would? This is my last question for you before I let you actually start your summer day. What do you think it would take to get him? Because it's weird to have a player that's like both a buy low and a sell high at the same time, depending on who the other managers are in your league. But he kind of is that guy.
He is. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think
like he's top 30 overall, but you're not gonna have to pay top 30 to get him.
No. I think you could offer up probably a top 80 player to get him. Someone that sort of springs to mind, and I'm looking at rankings here, is because I think people still are going to associate Dyson with steals. So if you're moving off of Dyson Daniels, you are going to want to get some steals back, because that's probably why you drafted him. So unless you've just somehow fallen into a punt steals build, then of course you could move on from Dyson.
Yeah.
But Herb Jones might be an interesting one. His former teammate, another steals guy who's playing well at the moment because the Pelicans are injured. I would take Dyson over Herb Jones personally, but others might not agree. But that might be a good example because he is a steals guy.
Here's a tougher one. What about someone from the other like statistical profile? Would you take Dyson Daniels or Zach LaVine?
See, then it comes down, I think, a little bit to, and the cop-out answer comes down to what stats do I need?
Yeah.
Because if I just need points, then I take LaVine. But if I need rebounds, defense, assists are probably comparable to some degree.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I mean Dyson is a. If we are trying to stay fairly neutral here, which it's hard for me to do on Dyson Daniels, but we do see these players that have high volume, elite low volume categories like steals and blocks. Their overall rank is warped. It's
true.
It's weird. Like Walker Kessler is not a top 30 player, but you average 3.5 blocks, it pushes you way up. And Dyson does fall into that category a little bit because steals are by far his number one category. So he is a good example of not necessarily paying attention to overall rank and having a bit of a look at what stats do you need, what are you punting. So yeah, overall rank, Dyson will finish ahead of Levine. I don't know if I'm confident in saying that, but I think he will. But Levine will obviously average double what Dyson averages in points, maybe. So yeah, I think it's definitely a discussion. I would consider Dyson.
Yeah, and the answer might be that that's a trade where everybody ends up winning. Could be one of those kinds of trades. Everybody ends up getting the thing that they needed. Kingy, we've done enough. We've done 40 on buys and sells. That's sufficient. I think you can punch out for the day, and actually start your day. He is Adam King 91 on Twitter and on the new Blue Sky Network. You can call him Kingy. Check him out on social media. He will likely be talking about Dyson Daniels whenever you find him. As well, he should. Damn it. Adam, I know we're going to do it again soon. I don't know exactly when it's going to be. I can promise that I'm going to try not to be flaky, but I'm also going to break that promise. So I'm just going to say, thanks, bud, for dealing with me.
I'm used to it. I'd be more surprised if you just said, "Yep, I can do that time."
Yeah, never, not once.
No,
at least
something would be going on.
I don't want to lead you on. You know I'm going to screw it up at least one time. So all of my responses are like, maybe, hopefully, can we?
Yeah,
we can. But it'll be soon, one way or the other. Some day is going to frickin' fit together. Adam, love you, bud. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, mate.
We're going to wrap this sucker up pretty quick. Adam and I have a small tendency to run a bit on the long side, but there's so many things strategically. You guys know I love the deep theoretical stuff. And I also very much appreciate the fact that Adam brings the corresponding, what is it going to take to get this thing done? That's something I think a lot of analysts have done a better job of lately. At least I know the ones that I see talking about trades usually try to give that sort of matching pair element to it. But again, let's get out of here. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, drop that 5-star review if you're listening on a traditional pod channel. And I'll be back with you guys again tomorrow, which I guess would be what? That's Thursday, my time. It's already Thursday, Kingy time. Thursday morning, we will have the first ever appearance from the great Matty G on the pod. He's got some buys and sells. We'll drop tomorrow morning. Thursday midday show, I believe, will be an NBA hot and cold, although, again, not that much has changed over the last week. And Friday, we'll, of course, get into more of the weekend review stuff. Well, maybe we'll push that back to the weekend. It doesn't matter. I'll figure it out. It's a big Saturday. That's the thing to keep in mind. Saturday's a big one, too. This is a weird, stupid week. Sick of the NBA Cup messing with my schedule. I need routine. I need a set routine. I'm like a child. You guys probably gathered that by now. This is Dan Bespris thanking our buddy Adam King one more time, but also Dan Bespris, who you may know for having a very ugly voice and not that disturbing face. Can I tell you guys a story? I closed that tweet down, the one that I put up at the beginning of the show, where one of the followers said that I'm much more handsome than my voice would have led him to believe. It reminds me, I have toe thumb. I don't know what the actual affliction is called. I'll put it up on the screen so you guys can see it. The thumb on my right hand looks like a big toe. It's a big toe. You guys are never going to see me the same after seeing this thumb. I was 17 years old at a restaurant in Tarzana, California, and the waiter came up to the table and saw me holding the menu. So he saw my two thumbs basically on the front end of it and freaked out. Started yelling at how ugly my thumb was. And I think in a moment of self-realization, he was like, oh God, this is a customer. I know he's a 17-year-old twerp kid, which I'm sure I was. I was a nice kid. I was a well-behaved 17-year-old, to no one's surprise, old man Vespris behaving. He goes back, stops himself, and walks away. It was very unusual. And we're all laughing at it at the table because who do I care? It's a dumb thumb. I got a dumb thumb. My other thumb, by the way, relatively normal. See? Normal thumb. Not normal thumb. Comes back out with other members of the wait staff to show them my ugly thumb. And they're all laughing at me. And then finally they pause and he looks at me and he puts his two hands, not on my face, but near it, almost to create like a screen around my face and says, your face is so pretty, but your thumb is so ugly. And that's what that tweet reminded me of today. So thank you for listening, despite the fact that I sound like a crusty old fart. You guys are amazing. Adam, you're wonderful. We'll be back with you guys again tomorrow. More Old Man Squad right around the corner, as always. I'm Dan. See you guys on social. That's it. We're done. Adios for now.